Number 5 for me is Laiatu Latu, the pass rusher from the Indianapolis.
He is number 5 for me as well. That is crazy.
Not starting off great. Number 4, Saints cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. That's my deep pull there. That's the pull.
Okay, I don't have him, but I did consider him.
Good. That's what I thought. I know more ball than you do. Number three, I'm going Tyke Smith, the cornerback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 2, I'm going to go with Andrew Phillips, the cornerback for the New York Giants. And number 1, I think you have to go with the guy who is the odds-on favorite to actually win the award. It is Los Angeles Rams pass rusher Jared Verse. So little treetops on all of them. Like where Latu is coming along, it felt like when I watched his first couple of games, I don't know if he was totally ready for the strength of the NFL level, right? I think that he was able to win with his strength level when he was at UCLA. His hand usage was so fantastic. He was able to stay very clean against offensive tackles at the college level. I just don't think he was ready for the strength of the NFL level. It took him a couple of weeks to get acclimated to that. Now we're starting to see those pass rush moves get in there a little bit more and more, so I think he'll be okay. For Kool-Aid McKinstry, when I was watching his reps, for example, like, I don't know if you're going to bring him up, but like Nate Wiggins is somebody who I consider, because Nate has had a lot of like splash plays, but he's also had some down plays. And when I went back, I specifically watched these two guys back to back to tape. And McKinstry to me is just so much more steady. The Saints will play him in press coverage. There's no panic, just like in the Alabama tape. He's hip to hip with these guys, and I think he's just playing really steady ball. And if he was on a team that didn't have as many cornerbacks as the Saints do sort of solidified in their rotation, McKinstry would be a starting cornerback even as a rookie right now with other teams. So I think he'd have even more snaps if he was anywhere else, but I think I really liked what I've seen from him with the Saints. Tyke Smith, we talked about him a little bit last week. He does it all for the Bucs. And playing, like, we talked about the degree of difficulty of going from college football to the NFL, the quarterback position at the offensive line position when we talked about Joe Alt and Jaden Daniels. To come in and play starting corner at the NFL level is also incredibly difficult to do. You are asked to do so many things. You are asked to cover so many different shapes and size wide receivers. And Tyke Smith is just handling this laundry list of assignments so well, and already with good confidence like we've seen, especially over the last couple of weeks. Run defense grade's fantastic. It's an 88.4 run defense grade already this season. Could have even had a pick on a really good coverage play that we saw 2 weeks ago. And I think that he is going to be a fantastic player in this league. And when it's all said and done at the end of this rookie year, as long as he is fully healthy, he's going to get talked about as one of the better rookies, whether he wins the award or not. Andrew Phillips, I know he's missed a little bit of time, but holy cow, when he has been on the field, this dude's got difference-making, click and close, downhill type of speed. And his aggression, his confidence that he is already playing with as a slot defender has been fantastic to see for the New York Giants. So I have him at number 2. I think the ceiling and his impactful plays have been great. And then Jared Verse, man, he's been a pressure monster. He's getting after the quarterback. He's getting into the backfield. You and I were kind of laughing before we started recording. He's been in the backfield so much that somehow a defensive lineman is leading the NFL in missed tackles. So we don't love the missed tackles, but we love the fact that he's at least there to set himself up for it. We'll hopefully clean up on some of those missed tackles and get more of that backfield production. But to me, Jared Verse has been the number 1 defensive player. So your 5, let's hear it.
Okay, so I think our big differentiator is not so much in how we saw the players, but just in who we considered because of snaps. Like, I thought Andrew Phillips has been awesome this season, but he's only played 89 snaps.
Right.
And so that made it tricky for me because I was like, okay, the sample size is just so small. I mean, that's like a game and a half of snaps, basically. And it was pretty similar situation with Kool-Aid McKinstry, who really hasn't played hardly at all last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. He's really only started and played 1 full game.
Right.
And so he played very well against Philadelphia. So for me, that's why I was like, okay, I what I've seen, I just need to see more if we're considering this award. And so that's why those guys were like a little bit lower for me. Now I'm going to be a hypocrite because I already said I had Latu 5th, and we could talk about him in a second. But I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite here and say I did put Byron Murphy, who only has 90 snaps, 4th for me. And the reason I thought that was the case is because I think I have more opportunities to see whether a defensive lineman's good or not in 90 snaps than I do basically what Phillips and Kool-Aid have both played about the same amount of snaps because they are out of so many plays and don't get tested as much. So I felt a little more comfortable going with Byron Murphy at 4 with Having said that, I don't feel that comfortable yet because I mentioned to you last time we talked about Murphy that there's been low end plays too, but the high end plays have been so good
Yeah.
that I was
Yeah.
just like, man, I mean, I just think like there's could be a really special skill set here with him and the ability to rush and play run defense. The high end stuff he does is like top tier players in the league. Like maybe not the Donald, Chris Jones type of tier, but like the next group, like he'd be top 10 already if he channels that stuff as this year develops. So just because I saw enough flashes to think I wouldn't be surprised if this guy's like a tier 2 D tackle at the end of the season, I felt like it would have been I felt like especially with this group and the competition being like okay, but not like amazing that I had to have him in here. And then I actually had Tyke Smith third too. I don't know why I thought I could sneak a Bucks guy past you and maybe you wouldn't be locked on there because he's getting absolutely no national buzz at all. But just whatever you needed slot corner to do, he does at a high level, and Phillips does too. And this is why Smith's played like double the amount of snaps as Phillips at this point. But I think that's been one of the big differences so far. Just I mean, those two guys at that position in the NFL, like that is such an important position, and the importance of that position has just grown and grown and grown as teams have moved more to not they're still predominantly single high, but more to two high shells and taking away the deep passing game. How important it is to have a slot like a flat, perimeter run, perimeter pass game destroyer who will blow up blocks, who will reroute, who will knife through between in the trash, who takes good angles, who tackles well in space. Like all of those things are so important. And then you add what he can do in zone coverage as an underneath defender and dropping underneath routes and making plays on the ball. It's just like a full skill set, the blitz stuff, like those kind of players I think are just really, really quality elite player like caliber position. And I think if these guys can continue that, Phillips deserves to be in that conversation too. So I think Smith is great. I have the number 2 guy is not on your list, Trevor. Do you want to take a shot at who it is?
I would have guessed it was Murphy because Murphy's a really good shout out. Is it Devondre? Is it
No, not Devondre. Devondre we should talk about, but he's off my list, but it definitely deserves consideration. Not Devondre Sweat.
God, who's gonna be?
Now I feel like I'm that guy. But like I think you mentioned it. You said it about playing nickel, but I think playing corner in the NFL is so hard. And for me, Quinyon Mitchell has been, although there have been some moments for sure,
okay.
where like I think like, oh, he got beat on that play or like that's tough.
Yeah.
Like he is also faced off against some of the best in the league, and he's played at a really high level. And I think for that scheme, the click and close, the special stuff that he shows at that position, ability to find the ball and make plays on it, he comes up and he tackles. Yeah, there have been growing pains and there'll be bumps in the road and every corner is going to get a penalty and things like that. I understand that, but I think it's such a hard position to play well as a rookie. And he has been relatively, I think, pretty stable, pretty quality. He's gotten his hands on the ball. He's made high-end plays. And I know it hasn't been perfect. I know his PFF grade is not like elite or anything, but I still think when you consider the full context of what he's being asked to do, he's forcing 2 incompletions a game right now at corner. That's what he is through the first 4 games of the season. And he's played the most snaps of any rookie defender. So to mentally be able to handle it, especially after he played some in the slot in camp, and it wasn't like he was just like fully an outside guy the whole time in the system. And so like the group around him has been great. It's like he's been the best corner on the team so far. And I think he's just played at a really high level. So to me, just considering the context of everything, when I watch the tape, I just think like he's been the second most impressive guy. And then we can talk about Verse in a second here because I do want to talk about him because he's a fascinating, where does he stack up sort of around the league right now and against other rookies. But thoughts on those 4 for me?
Yeah, so I think Quinyon's a really good shout out. I've watched him. It's a lot of good, a lot of bad. I don't even want to say like a lot of bad. It's just a cornerback roller coaster. He's just going through it as a rookie. So I thought about Quinyon, but I didn't consider him in, well, I don't want to say I didn't consider him. Again, like I considered him for my top 5. I didn't think he'd be 2 for you. So when I was trying to be like, oh my gosh, who is he going to have at 2? I wasn't thinking of Quinyon, but the fact that he has played over 250 snaps already within 4 games, I don't want to give the praise for the degree of difficulty of stepping in, playing at the quarterback position and the offensive tackle position, and not also give that same sort of love to corners who, you and I have talked about this before. I've heard this quote from former players. starting at corner in general in the NFL as a rookie in week 1 is like trying to drink water through a fire hose. That is how it has been put to me. You are just trying to take in so much information about your own game, what the other team is doing, the new defense that you're on, that sort of chemistry. And like you mentioned, it's not exactly been stable on the defensive side of the football for the Philadelphia Eagles. So for Quinyon to even play stable, because his run defense grades are fine, his coverage grades are fine, it's ups and downs in both areas, but yeah, I think it's a good shout out for him to be in a top 5 because of how well he's been able to play, given the volume that he has been asked to play already early on in the season. I also think I watch him, Trevor, and I just think like he's just going to be really good. He's going to be really good. I just think that, and so maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, jumping the gun here. And I know there's been a few negative plays this year too, but like even when you watch, like I understand, I get it, like why he did that. The high end stuff he's done, I don't think there's a lot of guys that can do it. So for me, I just think he's going in a really positive direction, in my opinion, and I just feel so confident in him in a tough role being really, really good. So that's part of my rationale. And I think that we've got some really nice corners that are standing out already. Like I do think Quinyon Mitchell is one of them. You know, I mentioned Andrew Phillips hasn't played a ton of snaps, but Kool-Aid McKintry's kind of the same way. We thought this was going to be a good cornerback class coming in, but you know, I mentioned Nate Wiggins a little bit earlier. Kamari Lassiter has had some really nice moments. Again, a guy who has been up and down, but to me, the cornerback class has looked up to the challenge is probably how I should say this. It's not like they've been phenomenal, but all of these guys, they don't really look overwhelmed. These corners that were drafted in the first 3 rounds, at least the guys that we've gotten to see some sort of playing time from already this season. So I do love that. It looks like that cornerback room that we talked about very highly of going into last year, they're getting to play really well.